So, like I mentioned, my name is Samantha Fowler. I'm the County Executive Director at the Carroll County XA office. I cover 9 counties. I'll list some. I cover Fulton, Carroll, Coweta, Harrelson, Heard, Alden, Douglas, Meriwether, and Truth. So if you're in any of those 9 counties, you would start out with my office in the farm program side. I have 3 program technicians and 1 temporary right now. If I'm not in our office, if you ever need anything, one of my staff, they'll be able to take care of you. Or if it's like an emergency, they'll get touch me if I'm on the field in the field visit. But our number is right here listed, and I have cards as well. If anybody wants my card, it has my direct email. And then our office is located in Carrollton, but I like getting out, meeting everybody face to face, seeing your farm operations. So if you want to get started with USDA and you want a field visit set up, just call us. We'll get that. Sometimes I work with NRCS, so I would probably call your local DC and see if they want to meet me out there just to bounce off ideas to see, what best fit, which program would best fit you. So you can go next slide. So is anybody already participating in USDA right now? You are? Okay. If not, farm program, FSA farm programs, you will need to call our office. We'll set you up, get your farm number, get you in the system, because you have to be in the system before, if you want to apply for a loan, if you're applying for EQIP, probably working with RMA as well. So we're going to send you a bunch of forms, eligibility forms that you'll have to sign, but we can email instructions for you. We can meet you at your operation, or we can have a phone appointment, go over the forms. And then what we'll also do is set up your farm in our GIS, and you will get assigned a farm number. So if you own and then lease farms, you will have multiple farm numbers. And then whenever you apply for applications, that farm number will be tied. Most of the time with our programs, you'll have to report your acreage, which I'll talk about that as well. It's like if you're growing produce, or if you have any grasslands, you would just report those acres to us, because with most of our programs, you have to have an acreage report. Some of them you don't, or with our loans, you have to prove your commodity. So you need to be reporting. Very important to do that. And so once you get set up, the biggest thing is call, make an appointment. Like I said, I like talking to people. I like meeting face to face, or like I said, holding a phone appointment. And prepare. So how are you operating? Are you operating as an entity or individual? If you're an individual, it's more simple. You'll just complete that new producer packet for just you. If you're an entity, we will need that new producer packet for your entity and every member. It's not just the entity. So it can get kind of confusing when you're filling out these papers. So that's why I'm saying don't hesitate to call. Like I said, we'll send a big email, but it can get overwhelming. Just call us. And then think about your vision. If you're not already in a full operation, or if you want to expand and start something else, kind of have that in mind, because we do have several different programs. So when we do meet, or I do meet you out in the field, I can say, oh, well, you might need to look into this program, or this program might be more beneficial for you. So just have that in the back of your mind. So when you have questions, or if I have questions, it'll be a lot smoother. So during your visit, we will be creating your farm number. Now, I will say most of the time we have to have the new producer forms first, because I have to get you set up in the system. So you might not get a farm number that day, but we will get you your farm number within 7 to 10 business days. Sometimes we're just backlogged from other programs, but we will always try to get it to you. My goal is within 3 days. We don't sit on it. And then we will also, like I said, discuss your business and your conservation goals. And then one other important part, I don't know, Jazz will talk about it. This form is called an 80-10-26. So if you're growing any commodities, or you're wanting to clear cut timber, this form is really important. We don't want nobody violating the wetland or HEL soils. So I go over that form really well with people. I just don't want anybody to be surprised with anything. And so during when I'm asking you what's your goals, what are your vision, this form is very important. Because I don't want somebody to go out there and clear a bunch of timber and then be in violation and can't participate. So like that, just you can fill it out, or if you just, hey, this is my goal. In the future, I will be doing that, then I'll have you fill one out and then tell you to come back whenever you are at that time ready to do so. So FSA programs is different than farm loan department. We have programs that are for commodity loans, farm storage loans. So if you need a cooler, you need a cooler truck. If you have produce, like a grain bin, if you're doing any commodities like that. We do have those loans. We have conservation programs. So one off the top of my head is what we call grassland CRP. So that is to stop the threat of conversion. So if you have any pasture land, you put it in and try to get it ranked, and then the government will pay you if you're accepted to keep that in grassland, to keep it a pasture, do what you're doing. Our conservation programs are 10 or 15 years. So like I said, we have those. We also, we have what we call NAP, it's non-insurable disaster assistance program. So a lot of the grazing or hay insurance or produce that Davina will talk about that they don't cover, will cover for insurance as well. But you have to, if you're already producing, keep your production up because you'll have to turn in your production every year with that program. And then this is just like a few programs. We have a lot. So that's why if anybody's interested, we can set up appointments. That way we can go more in depth with what you're doing, what you're needing. But another one is if you have any honeybees, we have a honeybee program. So if you lose any kind of colony disaster disorder, then if you're producing anything like that, we have a program for that. These are just a few. So sometimes Congress will throw out a program last minute, and if you've been reporting your acres, like I said, it's very important, you could be eligible for that program. So that is just, and then I have a farm loan slide. I didn't know if Chantel would be here first, but like I said, she'll go over them, but she has microloans, guaranteed operating. Fulton County, I cover, but Chantel's office is in Calhoun, just north of here. And so I had her contact, she'll talk more about that. And lastly, what is a little different for farm program side is we have county committees. So right now we have an urban county committee, and then we have my Carroll County committee, which I have Fulton, Douglas, and Paulding representing an area. So if you're a new producer, if you want to participate in the urban county committee, you can let me know. We can get you switched over if you want to be in my office. So the big thing is committee members are really important. Y'all bring knowledge to the office. So when we have programs and there's some things I can't approve, my county committee has to approve those. Y'all will review applications, or if a yield set too low or something like that, y'all can take y'all's knowledge, bring it to the committee, and the committee can send it up and be like, here's our reference, or this is our knowledge. Can you reconsider this? So I wanted to talk about that. Today was the last day to be submitting the ballots or postmark them. But next year, I think they're going to do urban again for another, what we call LAA, like a separate area. So if you want more information about county committees, if you want to participate with county committees, just let me know, or I can get you in the direction for the urban COC community. And she can talk more about that. And that's pretty much all I have. I know it's kind of short. Mainly is I want to meet everybody and see your operation, because we do have so many programs. I didn't want to go too far in depth today because I didn't want to confuse anybody. But the biggest thing is if you're participating with entity, have all that entity documents ready for your appointment. And I need signature authority. I need your articles of incorporation. I'll just have to have that as well when I'm setting you up. That's the biggest thing right now, as I'm seeing. And I know that's a lot to ask for, but I just want it up front, and then that way, when you're participating, I won't have to ask for it. So going into now Chantel with farm loans. Yeah, that'd be great.
So I'm in the same agency, farm service agency, but we have farm loan programs. So we administer all the loans in 23 different counties. So if you look at the slide, the blue counties are everything that falls under what I cover, 23 different counties. I've listed them, but I probably can only list the top of my head. But so my office is actually located in Calhoun, but like, you know, she said, we do travel out to every single farm that we have an application for, just to make sure, you know, to take a look at everything and see everything. This is my phone number, 706-629-2582, extension 4. Just give us a call if you have any questions. Okay, so in my office, I'm the farm loan manager. I do have Tony, farm loan officer, and Kelly, my PT or program technician. So if you give us a call, any one of us you can speak to, we'll be happy to help. Okay, so I'll start with, we have different programs, and again, I can list them all, but the slides will probably take all night. But so I'll start with the microloans and just kind of give us the top direct loan programs. And by direct loan, I mean all the loans that we can make directly from my office, from start to finish. So the microloan program is the beginning one targeted for beginning farmers and niche farmers. So a lot of times urban farmers fall into that category. The microloan threshold is $50,000 maximum. So people normally start with this one, but you can always, you know, apply for a bigger one if that's the need. So it's great for people who have limited experience because it only requires 1 year of experience. And then there's some flexibility in the eligibility criteria. So like there's ways to waive the requirement. And then there's 3 different types of loans that fall into that microloan category. You have an annual operating, which would be due 1 year from the day of closing. You have an operating loan, which would be used for equipment, which is normally a 7-year term. And then we have farm ownership loans, which is, you know, can be anywhere up to 40 years. But we don't see the farm ownership loan as frequently because it's hard to find property under $50,000. However, it could be used for upgrades to real estate that you might already have. So that's a consideration as well. All right, so the annual operating loans, our rates, like everyone else, have increased quite a bit, but they tend to be non-competitive. So we can't compete with the lender's rate, which makes our program attractive. It's designed for people who might not be able to get credit elsewhere because they might be a beginning farmer or maybe have not as much experience. So our December rate is 5.125%. All of our rates are fixed for the term of the loan. So while our rates update monthly, once you're approved, that's your rate for the whole term of the loan. Annual operating loans can be used to purchase feed, seed, fertilizer, any supplies. You can pay for labor and anything really that's annual in nature, land rent, things like that. So then we have the term operating loans, which are longer, typically used for equipment or chattel purchases, so purchases of animals. And then we can refinance farm-related debts. So a lot of times what people say is, oh, well, I really wanted a farm, started my urban farm, took on credit card debt on my personal credit card. That, as long as you can document that it was for a farm-related purchase or purpose, we can refinance that. So that has helped quite a bit as well. The term operating loan rate is 5.125% for this month as well. And then we have farm ownership loans. So farm ownership loans vary from 10 to 30 years. We can go up to 40 years, but we normally don't like to do that. So that way, if you have a bad year, we have some room to restructure. But it can go up to 40 years. The rate for the FO is 5%, and FOs can be used, farm ownership loans can be used to purchase farmland for down payment or to purchase things that are affixed to the real estate. So farm fixtures. All right, and so we also have some additional loan programs outside of the microloan, which is that $50,000 threshold. Our regular operating loans can go up to $400,000. Again, the rate same as the microloan, and then it varies from 1 to 7 years depending on repayment. Same with the farm ownership loans. We can purchase up to $600,000 in real estate. So for farm ownership loans and for the full $600,000, we do have stricter eligibility criteria. We require 3 years of experience in farming. And that is because it is a long-term loan and it's a higher dollar amount. We just want to make sure that you're successful. The terms are typically the same, vary from 10 to 40 years. And then the down payment loan. The down payment loan program can be a little confusing because it requires the applicant to have a down payment of 5% in cash. But what it does is it allows us to finance the remaining 45% at 1.5%, which is a very low rate. However, the down payment loan has to be used with another lender. They have to provide 50% of the purchase price. So 5% in cash, we provide 45%, the other lender provides 50%, but at 1.5, even if you divide that rate, probably is better than what you can get conventionally. And so that program is only available to what we call SDA applicants, socially disadvantaged applicants, minority applicants, and women farmers. So that's the only loan program which has that availability. It allows us to limit those barriers to entry and kind of get people to buy land. And then we also have a joint participation loan program. With the rise of prices and land, we've seen a lot of purchases or a lot of land over 600,000. So people are wondering, 600,000 is not enough. What can I do to buy this property? It's $1.2 million, for example. We can participate with another lender. So they can provide 600,000 in that example, and we could provide 600,000 at our rate, and that rate is 2.5%. So 600,000 again at 2.5% is a pretty good deal. Same term, but of course you would have to find the other lender that can finance the remaining amount. Oh, and if you don't mind going back to that slide, to be clear, the down payment program requires 5% down, but our regular farm ownership loans can finance up to 100% of the purchase price. So there's no down payment required with our direct loan program, which is very huge. And then outside of direct loans, as I mentioned, loans that are applied for and closed in my office, we have guaranteed loans. Guaranteed loans are applied for and closed with a lender. We, as FSA employees, guarantee that loan, which allows them to provide a rate discount and more flexible terms. So the total loan limit effective October 1st is $2,037,000. Sometimes people decide to go that route because they might have experience or they might have no experience, and some lenders don't require any experience. But it is at their rates and their terms. So they might require 15% down payment. But with the guarantee, they may be willing to reduce the interest rate even with that down payment because we're guaranteeing it up to 90%, which means in the event of a loss, they only lose 10%. It's a win for the bank, a win for the applicant, lets them get the financing, and it limits their loss. So how does the application process work? The first thing you want to do, of course, is get a farm number. If you're renting a farm, get associated with the farm, because when you apply with us, we're going to ask for that. If you haven't done that, we also still need the eligibility requirements that she discussed, the 80-10-26 and other eligibility form. After you do that, you want to make sure you kind of gather your own financials, figure out what your assets and liabilities look like, because we'll require a balance sheet to be completed at the time of application. The better you prepare, the easier the paperwork will be. Not only that, we'll ask you about your goals for the operation, what your short-term goals are, your long-term goals are, who's going to be running the farm, so how it's organized. And then like whether or not you have actuals over the past 3 years. If you have actuals in the past 3 years, we'll use your actuals. If you don't have actuals, we'll use a budget.
For people that may not understand what an actual is, what does that mean?
Your actual historical production records. So a lot of times people will say, oh, well, I want to buy a $600,000 farm. I have 3 years of experience, but I've never farmed my own. I've never done it by myself. You know, I've farmed with somebody else. So at that point, you don't have actuals because that was the other individual's actuals. Actual historical production. So in that case, that individual, we still could do the loan, but we wouldn't be able to use those production records as their own. We'd have to use a budget. And I stress that because the budget might be using yields, things that aren't as great as what you've actually done. But if you can't prove it, we have to go about it. We can. Thanks for asking that. And then basically the adequacy of land, what property are you using for your farming operation? Is it suitable for what you're trying to do? If you're buying animals, do you have fencing, water source? You know, we're not going to buy animals for them to die because, you know, we want to make sure that they're going to be taken care of. And also the biggest part, a lot of things people have hiccups with is a marketing plan. Where do you plan to sell your product? How much do you expect to get? And do you have any contracts or verifications for that? Oftentimes people say, yeah, I have 5 goats. You know I can make goat milk. Never done it before. Don't know what price I'll charge. So in that case, we have to use a budget. We can use like area budget. But if you have your plan already established, that would help us a great deal. And then projected income and expenses. If you're applying for this loan, we want to make sure that the production of your farm will be able to repay it. While we can consider non-farm income and we do a full financial projection, we want to make sure that your farming operation will be able to at least make the annual installment of the loan, if possible. Okay, and then of course, get your farm number with us. So we will ask for the completed application form. The forms can be a little cumbersome at first, but my office is always here to help you with them. If you have non-farm income, we'll ask for that, for verification of that. We'll ask for a credit report fee, and then all the other items listed on this page. And then how do we evaluate the application? First of all, we'll make sure that you're eligible. There's several eligibility criteria, they're listed here. The biggest ones people always ask about is credit history. We're not looking at your credit score. We're just looking at the past 3 years of your history. If you have a bankruptcy 10 years ago, it wasn't in the past 36 months. We'll consider it. So just keep that in mind. And of course, managerial ability. Those varies by loan type. So obviously we talked about microloan. They have different eligibility criteria than a farm ownership loan, which is a much higher one. Again, for microloans, you only need 1 year of experience. So you can have a mentor for 1 year. And you meet that eligibility requirement. Or you can be participating in an FFA or agriculturally related organization, one like this. And that would be the 1 year eligibility as long as you can verify it. Or a college degree in an agricultural field. Again, farm ownership loans require 3 years of experience within the last 10 years. And then we can substitute 1 year for a military experience for the degree or with a business management experience. All right, so how do we look at the financials? We want to make sure after we get your balance sheet and all your income and all of your expenses, your personal debt, things of that sort. If we put in our loan, does it cash flow? It's simple as that. Is it working? Will you be able to repay the loan? We'll consider non-farm income, your family living expenses, and your personal debt payments. And then ultimately, we just want to make sure that our loan would be paid timely with the income generated from the farming operation. We do require 100% security on our loans. So that means if we're purchasing a piece of equipment, that piece of equipment will be ours until you pay it off. it has to be at least 100% of the, and then, what do you think? We do have some environmental requirements. Of course, you're working with the government. We want to make sure that you don't impact any wetlands or any highly erodible land. That's what that eligibility form that you complete with farm programs is so important for. We do look at that and require that for a farm law as well. If you plan on doing ground disturbance, i.e. clearing timber on a piece of property that you purchase or might be wanting to do work on with FSA funds, you cannot touch the ground until we make sure it's environmentally sound. If you do, and it's too much ground disturbance, we can't get involved for at least 12 months in those cases. So just keep that in mind. And again, this is my office. The blue areas, the counties I serve with. But if you need anything, an application, or want to email me directly for an application, there's my email listed on this slide. Feel free to give me a call or send me an email, and I'll be happy to help.
Cool. Okay. So, yeah, so like I said, we're gonna try to hold it to the end, but if we write it down, we're gonna move on to yes. You want me to press the- or do you want to- Yeah.
I mean, I can walk it.
No, I got it.
As part of RCS. I'm gonna dive into some urban ag, as it works and meshes with our program. It's kind of new in the sense of our program working with urban ag and putting those two things together. So we all learn together. Right? So like they say, you want to make sure that you contact your local field office and work with your local conservationist, because you may have more knowledge on some of these things in urban ag than they do at the time, right? We come from a rural background, working with row crop, large acres. So your knowledge, right, it can be invested into their field office, your local field office. So who we are in NRCS, we started out back in the 1930s after the Dust Bowl as the Soil Conservation Service. And we're now known as the Natural Resource Conservation Service because they found it better to conserve all natural resources. We follow them SWAPA, which is soil, water, animals, plant, air, and they even added a plus H to it, which is the human investment in all of it. What we do, right? Me as a conservationist, I help facilitate programs from USDA Farm Bill. Some of those programs are EQIP, CSP. We help with technical service, we call it CTA, just technical advisory. We come out, you got some questions, you want to figure out what's the best way to go about it, and we help you track down some local contractors, put up fencing or the aid in raised beds or hot tub. This technical assistance is available as well if you just need some help. Right? Sometimes it's not always financial or it's not always conservation plan based. It can just be that. As you see here, the NRCS invests about $8 million annually in financial assistance to local landowners. This slide right here, I'm gonna read off some facts from why we do it. So currently we're at about 8 billion people on the planet. And in the next 40 years, that number will reach about 10 billion. So we gotta feed those people, right? By the year 2100, it's projected to be more than 11 billion. So urban ag, traditional ag, everything is important because we gotta feed 11 billion people. So it's always a need for food, right? As long as we got people there. It's every county is serviced in the state of Georgia. Right, so no matter what county you're in, no matter what your farming issue may be or your resource concern, your county is serviced through a local field office. The field office that would service most of UAL's county and urban ag would either be our Marietta field office or our McDonough field office or our Lawrenceville field office. All of the counties in Metro Atlanta and Atlanta are serviced within those three offices. And we got a video
Sure.
15% of the world's food is now grown in urban areas. You can find it in backyard community gardens, in green spaces nestled between city buildings, in vacant lots beside freeways, right in the middle of suburban housing developments, and even on city rooftops. Farmers in the city, bringing people closer to their food.
What's next?
They convert food waste into healthy soils, grow food, then deliver it to people right in their own neighborhoods. As educators, they build personal relationships that can change the way their communities look at what and how they eat. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service can provide urban farms with both technical and financial assistance to make critical on-farm conservation improvements. Urban settings can produce large amounts of waste. These can leach into the surrounding soil, presenting unique challenges. So urban farmers often test their soils for contaminants like heavy metals before they get started. NRCS can provide farmers with technical information on soil mitigation strategies tailored to a farm's specific needs to ensure food is grown in a safe environment. NRCS can also provide both technical and financial assistance for installing high tunnels, allowing farmers to extend their growing seasons, shelter crops from weather extremes, manage pests, and help protect against drift from pesticides and pollen. And NRCS can develop irrigation water management plans that help urban farmers with wells, or conservation practices like rainwater catchment and automated water-efficient drip irrigation systems to help reduce their water use. Other USDA agencies also have assistance for urban farmers. Check out USDA's Urban Agricultural Toolkit for more helpful resources for urban farmers. Urban farming. It brings people closer to the land and to their food. To learn more about how NRCS can help urban farmers, visit your local field office or go to nrcs.usda.gov. The Natural Resources Conservation Service, helping people help the land, even in the city.
The thing that's different about a Verbo vacation home, you always have the whole place to yourself. No stranger at the dinner table making things awkward, or in another room taking
Okay.
So as you see from the videos, it's a host of different programs that we can assist with in urban agriculture, aquaponics, aeroponics, high tunnel, pest control, irrigation, water management, things like that. You come in, we can kind of get you a conservation plan, advise you on some technical assistance, and try to get you into some of the programs. The big focus with urban ag is food deserts, right? The definition for food desert is where 33% of a given region is living more than a mile away from a grocery store. Urban ags, community gardens aid in this process to reduce the amount of food deserts we have. And with the big push for expansion of people on this earth and the loss of land, right? Our urban ag has become a big thing, and the government has recognized, right? The 2018 Farm Bill developed the Urban Agriculture Innovation and Production Program, where it will be 17 offices nationwide to focus primarily on urban agriculture, with Atlanta being a mainstay on that list of 17 for sure. And that's why Shamika's gonna be here with you. She's actually working on the development. So at some point, right, in the next year or so, we'll have an urban ag office here across the street from Mercedes-Benz to where you can have more of a one-stop shop as pertains to urban agriculture. So with some of the things I named earlier, aquaponics, aeroponics, are our main practices that pertains to urban agriculture, which is micro irrigation, pest control, seasonal high tunnels. Anybody in here already have seasonal high tunnels or dabble with that? It gives you the opportunity to extend the growing season. But in order to get situated, like they said with FSA, you got to start with FSA. Farm Service Agency is a record keeper. So you have to establish a farm and tract number, and have all your eligibility and your farm requirements handled on their side before you can walk to my side. And once you get on our side, once your eligibility is intact, we'll go through a full-fledged process of about 5 steps where we'll meet you on your farm and do some planning, address some resource concerns, offer some technical assistance. Once we do that, we can put you in an application process. That application process is going to require a couple more documents, a 1026 primarily, which is to make sure that you won't be doing any damage to it. Those things will make you eligible, which will take you to a ranking process. Ranking process decides where the funding goes for that fiscal year, and then there's implementation. Once you've been ranked and approved and obligated for a contract, then you then would need to implement those practices that were discussed in the conservation plan, and then money will be paid out. So step one is conservation plan. How that works, contact your local field office and they'll meet you on the farm. This, as my counterpart spoke, that's where your vision needs to be expressed. Right? Don't simply say, hey, I want a high tunnel. Tell me you want a high tunnel and where you plan to go. Right? We want to reduce the area that you live in due to being food desert. We want to expand to 10 high tunnels so we know how to go about developing your conservation plan. A lot of times, right, you just stick your toe in and I get it because it can be cumbersome with paperwork and things like that. But with a full-fledged vision and plan, I know how to better aid you in that planning and to tell you how to sign up, right? If you want to expand to 10, let's see how we can get 2 in, 1 in initially, right? So we can get to that point. Step 2 is the application process, which is a CPA 1200. Most people are going to be, as far as urban ag, is going to be our EQIP program, which is the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. It pays out about 75%, 90% in some instances as it pertains to historically underserved markets. Eligibility, so your application has to be filled out completely and dated prior to the sign-up deadline for the fiscal year. We always accept applications, but there are sign-up periods from fiscal year to fiscal year. So sometimes you may fall in a later fiscal year, if we already done with sign up for the year. Sometimes you might be super early for an upcoming fiscal year. And I know sometimes it catches some of our landowners off guard, you know, we might, because the sign up period is normally about 30 to 60 days for a particular fiscal year. So if you don't sign up within that window, before that window, you're now signing up for the next sign up period. So with eligibility, if we can't get you eligible during our sign up period and application process, then your application will have to be then deferred to the following year. You have to submit a 1026. The 1026 will have to be checked by a soil scientist and approved through FSA office.
Okay, it says in the policy, the screen sharing is policy. I don't know if you're able to see it. All right, okay.
See, yep, I see what's on the screen.
Yeah. All right, so as listed, right? So with FSA, you have to have submitted your property deeds, right? They'll then define your lines and create your farm tract number. They'll also have their official record keeper. So all of the information we will need will have been garnered through their office, right? 1026 will have been signed up in their office, deeds have been submitted in their office, Social Security tax information will be submitted in their office. We'll pull it from their records and we'll give it them. And this is one of it's ranking is probably the simplest part of it, but it seems like the most complicated to landowners. So just to simplify it, while I have this group here, most people applying for the same practices are going to rank the same. Okay, so like if you come into the office, you fill out an application, and you all apply for house owner with micro irrigation, it's gonna rank the same. Outside of some geographical data, right? Like you might be in a impaired watershed, or you might be close to a body of water or something like that. They might give you a half, right? So from a ranking standpoint, it is not as competitive as you may think. Like, hey, what do I do to? It's just money thing, right? Like we're gonna work down that ranking until the money runs out. So the best thing to do is to always just keep applying and persevere as it pertains to the application process. Not much changes, right, in your application to get into funding, and more so how much money we receive and how far down the line. And this is the biggest part, implementation. Once you receive a contract from the NRCS, and the best way to stay in good standing is to make sure you implement these practices. It's a benefit to your next year's application to show any, the landowner like anybody else, that your local DC, hey, this guy, he gets stuff done. So he knows how to better address each individual person, right? Like how much hand holding do versus how much to cut you loose. So from a financial assistance standpoint, it's about 75% on average, right? For just our regular EQIP program. It's a regionally number that has been set. So sometimes it may be a little bit more than 75%, sometimes it might be a little less, because that number is already preset for each individual practice. But when it comes to our historically underserved, it'll pay out at a 90% rate. And when I say historically underserved, I mean limited resource farmers, which definition of that is a direct or indirect gross farm sale, not more than the current index value in each of the previous 2 years. Someone who has a household income at or below the national poverty level for a family of 4 or less than 50% of the county median. That would deem you a limited resource farmer. Beginning farmer is a farmer who hasn't participated in consecutive years in the previous 10 years. So if you come in, you're a new farmer, you're trying to get started, you got 2 or 3 years in, you can self-certify as a beginning farmer. If and when you are audited, then what they're checking is to see if you file for Schedule F within that 3-year consecutive in the 10-year window. You can go to the next. Our SD farmers, or socially disadvantaged, definition for that is a socially disadvantaged group is a group whose members have been subject to racial or ethnic prejudice, right? Some examples of that would be American Indian, Asians, Black, Native Hawaiians or Pacific Islanders, Hispanics. A key in our social disadvantage is gender is not considered a social disadvantage. So like you can't just be a woman farmer, right, and apply as SD.
For NRCS.
For NRCS, right? But FSA, they have women farmers in there SD. And then you have veteran farmers if you're active military or you're retired military, then you can apply as a veteran farmer. Within the last 10 years. I'm sorry about that. Last 10 years. And we do offer something to help urban farmers and all other farmers, what's called an advance payment, where you can receive half of the practice amount prior to implementation. Typically in a contract, you would get a contract to implement a hoop house, you won't be paid the full amount until the hoop house is installed. But if you request an advance payment, you can receive half of that practice payment. And you have to install that practice within 90 days. And you gotta have signature authority if you're an entity, right? So I need 902, I need every member in that entity's signature authority. And that's it. The video showed a Ag Urban Toolkit, it's that QR code right there if you want it. It was pretty big, so I didn't want to print it and hand it out, but anybody want to scan this QR code, you can get that Ag Urban Toolkit. And we have questions to the end, so.
Cool. And I'm gonna send out, I have a document with a bunch of links to all of the materials that are on the table here, as well as that Urban Ag Toolkit that I'm gonna send out in the thank you email afterwards. So that'll have everything in it as well. And I'll send that to you guys on as well. You want me to still? I can do it. Okay. For the one.
As I mentioned earlier, my name is Davina Lee. I'm with the Risk Management Agency. We deal with the federal crop insurance program. Anybody ever heard of the crop insurance or anything outside of NAP? Okay, so there is NAP, but then there's also the federally subsidized program, which is the agency I represent. In a minute. Callia asked us to just provide a couple of things, who we are and what we do, available programs and next steps. So we're going to cover that. We are the agency that provides a safety net for farmers and ranchers through our federal crop insurance program. We work to extend federal safety net to new farmers and ranchers. As Jazz mentioned, urban farming is new to USDA. So we are trying to get up to speed to extend insurance opportunities for our urban growers so that you all can also be part of that safety net. So we value input. We like to work with you all to find out what we may be missing in the programs that we do offering, or if there is an opportunity to offer something that we don't currently have. Our agency, as I mentioned, I'm in Valdosta. I have a regional office, so I cover the states of Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, then Puerto Rico. So that's all of those counties in the state. In each of those states, our agency is broken down into 3 different divisions: the product management, which handles writing all the policies, procedures, establishing rates and prices, as well as managing the data that our insurance companies provide, as well as what they also submit out to the public. Insurance services is another division, which is the division I'm reporting to, I'm part of. We established a reinsurance agreement with our AIPs. I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. We also handle education opportunities, and we are a regional office, so we provide input into the product management division to make sure that we're true checking. We can provide boots on the ground type of information to make sure that all of the procedures are working to fit the area that we service. And then we also have a compliance division. Purpose of crop insurance, as I mentioned, is to provide ways to mitigate risk. If you're in farming, there's risk, and you all already know that. And so what we're trying to do is help to mitigate that by if there's a loss or insurable cause of loss, providing some type of indemnity payment so that you can may not make you whole, but at least provide some income so that you can live to farm another year. Our agency, as I mentioned, we develop all of the policy terms, procedures, rates, and prices. We oversee the federal crop insurance program. We review new products. We try to expand our products to make them more feasible for the farmers that we're trying to serve. We have insurance providers. So our agency, we're more of a regulatory agency. We're not like our sister agency. So we don't actually go out and work one-on-one with farmers. We have a insurance agreement with our approved insurance providers. They're the ones that actually sell and service our products. So you would more likely work with an agent as opposed to my office or someone with RMS. But they have to sign a contract with us with an understanding that everything that we sell and sell that they're supposed to be everything that we develop, they're supposed to actually sell and service to all of the farmers that come to them for crop insurance. Some available programs, our focus, the one at the top is what's available to the area that Callie told me that's part of this group, the Atlanta area. So right now, all of these, the top tier, they are our national programs. They're available nationwide. They're pilot programs, that's aquaculture, that's beekeepers, if we have any beekeepers, micro farm, which I'll expound on a little bit later, nursery, pasture range land and forage, and whole farm revenue. So if you're interested in any of these programs, you can get with the crop insurance agent. They can talk to you and help you get your application started and going. The other programs that are listed below, it says they're available by written agreement. For instance, if there's blueberries being grown or cabbages or canola, you can still get insurance for those, but you have to go through a process of which we call a written agreement. You would work with an agent. They'll write a request for insurance and they'll send it to our office, and then we would write a policy for you specific for your operation. So even though you're not part of a program county, you can still get crop insurance. You don't have to necessarily just go or have NAP. You can work with an agent to get further coverage. So we offer 2 levels of coverage on our insurance program. We have the catastrophic level, which is the basic, the minimum level of coverage, 50% yield. So that means you lose 50% of the crop, then the policy will kick in. There's no premium required. There is 100% subsidized, meaning the federal government pays for the premium. There is an administrative fee of $655 per crop per county. It doesn't include any of the optional benefits, except for we do have a hurricane insurance policy that you can add that will allow you to have CAT. You'll have coverage for that. It's very similar to the NAP program that FSA administers. And so again, if you just want a policy, because sometimes lending institutions require you to have some type of crop insurance policy, it might be something that you might be interested in. The second level of coverage is our buyer coverage level. It ranges from 50 to 75% or 85%, just depending on what crop it is that you're interested in. The premium is subsidized, meaning again, we pay a portion. With the CAT, the government pays all of the premium. So if it's federally subsidized completely. With this policy, the producer pays a portion and the federal government pays a portion of the premium. The administrative fee for this is $30 per crop per county, and you can purchase additional. What we covered in time to make the policy pay out, any weather-related event, fire, insect, disease, wildlife, earthquake, price decline, depending on if you have a revenue type policy. So it will pay out. I mentioned a couple times about the premium subsidy and government subsidizing. So we have, on this example, the levels of coverages are across the top. You can go anywhere from between 50% coverage up to 75% or 85%, unless you have a cap policy, it is strictly at 50%. Below, depending on your unit structure, and you'll work with your agent to determine what that structure should be. The subsidy rate will range from 67% if you're at 50% coverage level up to 38%. So to kind of bring it home a little bit is to show how the subsidy works. If you're a producer in a county and you're told that your premium is going to be $100, if you have a 75% coverage level policy, the premium rate or the premium subsidy for 75% coverage level is 0.55 or 55%. So $100 from the 0.55, meaning you will pay the $55 for your premium, and then you'll pay the remaining $45. Other options we have available for crop insurance of the benefits is for beginning farmer and ranchers and now veteran farmer and ranchers. To qualify for this status, you must be an individual. For BFR, you must be an individual. If you are a beginning farmer and rancher and you have a partnership or corporation, to get the status for the partnership, everybody must be considered a beginning farmer and rancher. You must not have actively operated and managed a farm or ranch anywhere with an insurable interest in any crop or livestock for more than 5 years. Now, I think FSA, their beginning farm and ranch may be a little bit different. It's 10 years for them, but for us to qualify, you must be less than 5 years that you've operated or managed a farming operation. To qualify for a veteran farmer rancher status, you must be an individual who has served active duty in the U.S. Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, or Coast Guard, and you was discharged or released under conditions other than disarmed. And you have not operated a farm or ranch for more than 5 years, and you have obtained the status of a veteran during the most recent 5-year period. Again, I think it's different for FSA. It continues for you, all right, but for us, it's within the last 5 years. So some of the benefits, if you obtain the status, you're exempt from paying administrative fee, as I mentioned on the CAT, it's completely subsidized, but there is an administrative fee. But if you qualify as a beginning farmer rancher or a veteran farmer rancher, that fee is exempt, so you won't have to pay the $655. Again, the coverage is 50% of the production history, and you can't. It's coverage for any crop insured or reinsured by FDIC under permanent insurance plan. So that's any of our policies. Most of our policies have CAT except for whole farm and micro farm. The buyout benefit is the administrative fee is waived. So that means that $30 administrative fee that's applicable under other terms. If you qualify as a beginning farmer rancher or a veteran farmer rancher, you won't have to pay that administrative fee. You'll also get an additional 10% premium subsidy. So you'll get whatever the premium subsidy rate is. In the example we used earlier, it was 55% or 55 rate premium. That will go up to 65. So the government will pay 65% of the premium, and then you will pay the remaining 35%. Another benefit are organic. We have any organic farmers here. We have begun a new program that's going to be new for 2023. If you're transitioning to organics, or if you are an organic farmer or certified organic, you'll get an additional 10% premium subsidy. So on top of that 55%, if you're beginning farmer rancher, that's 10 more, that's 65%. If you have organics, that's another 10%. So government will pay up to 75% of the premium, and then you will pay the remaining 25%. So these are just different programs we have that are available if you are an organic farmer. Micro farm and whole farm, these are fairly new. This is whole farm was first introduced in 2015 under the Farm Bill. It covers up to $17 million of revenue. Post-production costs are not included. Expected revenue usually based on third-party sources. So that means if we already have a program and we'll use basically either the yields that have been established, or we'll use your yields, your revenue. If you don't have any revenue, then whatever records we can provide to establish your policy. Microfarm it was first offered in 2022. It's a streamlined approach to whole farm. It's for our smaller farmers. It's less paperwork required. It ensures operations of approved revenue of up to $350,000 for the first year. And then as you continue to carry your policy, you can increase your revenue up to $400,000. This is probably very useful for our urban farmers. The microfarm or the whole farm, depending on how big your operation is. If you're just starting out, you may be interested in trying to purchase a policy. It's an umbrella policy, meaning everything that you're growing in your urban farm can be covered under one of those policies. And again, those benefits I mentioned, just depends on where you fall. Premium subsidy can be provided and help assist with being able to make the policy a little bit more affordable. As a recap, streamlined whole farm is streamlined approach to our whole farm. Not to say that it's still not complicated, because it can be. That's why it's probably best to get with a crop insurance agent that can sit down and look at your operation, can kind of tell you have your records to show what you typically make. They can kind of help tailor the policy for you based off of your own records. It ensures your operation, as I mentioned, up to $350,000. Post-production and value-added costs are included in your approved revenue, which you're expecting your operation to make. And then the value and yields are based on your past 3 years of records. The timeline for microfarm and whole farm sales usually begin around September. Our sales closing date, if you're a calendar year filer, is February 28th. So you have until February if you want to purchase a policy. If you're a late fiscal year filer, that sales closing date is in November, which we just passed. And at that time, your intended farm operation report needs to be completed. That's just explaining what you're expecting to grow on your farm under that policy. On July 15th, the revised farm operation report is due. That will be submitted if for some reason what you intended didn't actually get planted. You can revise your report by July 15th. Billing date for these policies is around August the 15th, and your final farm operation report is due at the time of loss or by the net sales closing date. So if there are any changes you need to make, you would do so by either one of these events. I do have a couple of fact sheets in the back on both of these policies. As I mentioned, this is attractive for the urban farmers because they're more diverse, and these policies may be what could help get you the insurance that you're needing. Because like she's mentioned, a lot of the farm loan operations, they require some type of collateral, which they use our crop insurance policies as such if you don't have now. Next steps, contact the crop insurance agent. Our webpage, I have it listed here, rma.usda.gov. Let's see. So you will go across the top to either find agent, or you can go use the blue ribbon and there's an agent locator. To use that tool, you would just put in your location and it'll bring up all the agents in your area that you can meet with, and they'll be able to tell you or work with you to submit an application for any of our crop calls. We do, if you want to learn more about whole farm and micro farm, I went through it pretty quick. I gave a high level overview, but there will be some additional training. There will be a virtual webinar on December 13th. And if you're interested in participating in that, to learn more about it, you can contact me or my office. We're also having, if you're in the Florida area, know somebody in the Florida area, we will have an in-person meeting down in Live Oak chamber. Just some contact information, I can be reached at the number above 229-242-72235. If you're interested or have questions about our beginning farmer rancher or our veteran farmer rancher benefits or programs, you can reach our champion, who is Deal. His email address is above. And then also our urban farmer liaison, he couldn't be here tonight. He's actually had some appointments. His name is Travis Roberts. You can also reach out to him for additional questions.
All right, so next we have Joe Reynolds here from Love is Love Cooperative Farm. He agreed to give just a brief little farmer testimonial, just talking a little bit about some of the USDA resources that his farm has in you. So she can come up with more mulch.
Hey, nice to be here with y'all tonight. Thank y'all for all being here. I'm Joe Reynolds. I'm one of the worker owners at Love is Love Cooperative Farm in Mansfield. We're about 45 minutes east of Atlanta in Newton County. And we started this farm that we're on last year in May of 2021. Most of my experience working with NRCS and FSA is from farming here in the urban area in DeKalb County. 11 years prior, I had a chance to lease a 5-acre certified organic farm from a group of homeowners in unincorporated DeKalb County called Sky Gardens. But most of my experience has really been working with NRCS. I've got a little bit of experience with some of the FSA programs, but I have never borrowed any money from FSA, but I think that could be really cool. And definitely crop insurance is something, as our operation is growing, we're thinking a lot more about. So our farm in Newton County, the cooperative farm is 70 acres in total. And right now we're at about 6 acres of production with the hopes to be around 15 acres of production. So those sales numbers are creeping up, but also so is the risk as we continue to go forward. But I really got involved with NRCS like a lot of other farmers that I know because the high tunnel program that came out, I thought it was one of the more creative solutions to like, especially for local food movement farmers, local farmers to sort of meet USDA resources that folks came up with. And I think it came out in 2008 during the Obama administration. But that was the first thing that I did when I started to lease Sky Gardens, the farm in DeKalb County. I applied. I wanted to apply for a high tunnel, so that I called to see how you might do that. And the first thing they did is they sent me to the FSA office, and we got registered with a farm number and a track number. Filled out a lot of paperwork, but everybody's super duper nice. Walks you through it all. It gets a little bit complicated sometimes based on like considering your entity. Right now with our new cooperative, there are 5 of us, so it's just the amount of signatures that it takes to get anything signed. But previously, my wife and I we had a LLC partnership, so we'd always have to get all the signatures and sign certain ways. But everybody made it really easy. And then the next thing they did is I was sent to our NRCS representative came to meet me. I had an awesome NRCS rep. I've had all of them that we have had, been incredible. But the first one is this guy Jerome Brown. I don't know if any of you all have met Jerome Brown, but he's retired now. Has his own farm as well. But he super duper nice. Walked me through all the different things you could do more than just getting a high tunnel. So in that first round, I applied for a high tunnel, and then I also applied to get some erosion control. We had a little bit of area where we were definitely seeing a little more foot traffic because it's a farm owned by a community. People are walking around all the time, and Jerome sort of pointed out that he saw a lot of eroded soil and wondered if we might want to do something like put a perennial grass there or like level out the ground and he sort of walked me through like what NRCS is all about. So NRCS is working to conserve natural resources. So every single farmer that I know is working to do the same thing. We often just don't have the same language, but I'm pretty sure NRCS has a practice for any problem or many of the problems that you have on your farm or anything like involving like protecting your soil, protecting your water. And so I was, I'm a certified organic farmer. Our new farm is, but we were at Gaia Gardens as well. And so I was able to also get enrolled in some of the organic equip practices. So they don't pay a tremendous amount of money on a small acreage. We could work on that. But things like cover crops, having a crop rotation plan, doing nutrient management. So like how we do soil testing annually, we got some money back as a reimbursement. And at the time I was a beginning farmer, so I got a 90% cost share. But you know, the advancement payment didn't exist quite yet, as far as I know, but you know, like it took a little while to get used to it. Like there's a process. So like you have meet with the NRCS representative. The drone told me, he was like, you know, I think we can do this, and that. I'm gonna write it all up and send you the plan. And then I'll let you know, when the cycle's coming up for that. And so basically, I didn't hear very much for a little while. And then one day I got a call and he was like, all right, we got 7 days to sign your contract. And that's just the way the money operates. Like it goes really quickly, like when you're working with NRCS. So I only say it to be really familiar, it definitely is one of those things that seems like it's kind of like a building process, so you're like meeting, you're meeting with folks, you're like, they're beginning to understand your system, you're beginning to understand the system that they operate within. But, ultimately when it's time to sign the contract, it's, everything's laid out on paper and the economics is based on statewide calculations. So some things don't necessarily cost exactly, like when you hear 90% cost share reimbursement, that doesn't necessarily mean that like I'll get 90% back of the money that I spent. It's based on a calculator, our state economists did calculations to say how much they thought. Like a high tunnel is a little different, maybe because it's based on square footage, but some other things like the erosion control is based on what a statewide economist said it would take to do this kind of like repair to X amount of acreage of land. And down the road, we were able to apply for some other practices. So, NRCS is like really hip to relationships with the growers. So I think there's been a lot of feedback. So now you can apply for like a compost, like a concrete pad to put compost on, and like a bay system. And then because we actually got a second high tunnel at Gaia Gardens. I was told that we could apply to put gutters on them as well. So anybody that's farming in a smaller space knows that anytime water is like sloughing off somewhere and sitting somewhere too long, it's a real problem, right? Like, so for me, when I added that first high tunnel, I never really did very much to manage the water that was coming off of it. I just kind of worked around it a little bit. But when we added the second, it was a significant amount of roof line for water to be washed, water to sort of slope off of it. So I was able to get a cost share for putting gutters on both of the structures, and then basically an outlet pipe underground to send it away from my vegetable fields. And when I bring up the statewide economist thing, like some of the pipe that I needed to buy it's significantly more expensive than what, like at the time I was no longer a beginning farmer. So lower cost share there, you go back to say you go to 75%. But it was a little bit more expensive to buy the pipe than actually was sort of predicted. In the modeling that the statewide economists have done. And I don't think that's necessarily unique to urban folks in the urban environment, but I do think, some of those supplies are just a little more expensive in this area, or like around the city. With FSA, we've applied for the organic cost share reimbursement. So it's like money that comes through the farm bill. Another farm bill coming up, which a lot of is what really sends the majority of this money to all these programs. I know there are a lot of folks local, statewide, national groups that are doing advocacy work to make sure growers get that information back up to Washington. But the organic cost share program is one of those things. So if you're interested, And being certified organic is a great way to get the reduction on the cost of your certification fees. So, but basically what we do is we turn in our organic certificate to FSA. We turn in any of the fees that we had associated with paying with our organic certifier. And the price, the payout has changed, but right now it's $500 annually that you can get reimbursed. And if you're interested in transitioning to organic, there's another bucket of money. I don't know if it's going to exist next year, but
I'm not sure if it's, like you're saying, the new farm bill, we don't know what's gonna be coming out. And I'll get to it, but when you sign up with us with FSA, we put you on our newsletter. So we send out a newsletter every month. It's gonna have an NRCS article, sometimes we add RMA and farm loan and so, and then also text alerts. I don't blow up cell phones, but when a new program does come out, we'll send out one text and be like, this program just come out, please call the office for an appointment. So if you might have any questions about that, we can go ahead.
But FSA tends to have just, I mean, like, just really cool programs, I think, to sort of help your farm along. I mean, other things that I can, think like getting a well is a really big part of a lot of operations. That's another thing that typically brings people to NRCS programs. And that's something that we're utilizing in this coming cycle. We just made a relationship with our NRCS agent over the last year out in Newton County. But considering microloans in the future, I had that's definitely a consideration that our farm has had for buying some pieces of equipment. Buying things like equipment's a really nice thing to get a loan for because it acts as its own collateral typically, which is with any lender, not just USDA, collateral is always it's a sticking point, right? You have to figure out something to put up against it. But at some point we'll buy the farm that we're on in Newton County. The program we're in is called the Working Farms Fund. And they're acquiring farms for farmers and sort of like multi-county area around the Metro Atlanta area. But our lease, basically, our 5-year lease terminates with a land purchase, and definitely one of the first places that we're going to go to is to look at getting a farm operating loan through FSA. But it requires a lot of like I say this just because it's easy to lose track of it, right? For any farmer, but records, documentation, like having a system like QuickBooks, something that you can print reports out and share with people. All these are they're a lot of work on the front end, but they yield a tremendous amount they help sort of unravel that, that discussion around how you might be able to get, like a lower interest rate loan for land. And then, we were definitely, thinking about other things that maybe through rural development that are available as well. And this is one last sort of thing that I thought was really, really interesting. So the farm bills is going to come up here again pretty soon, but there was a gigantic infusion of money going to NRCS through the Inflation Reduction Act. So I think we're going to see a whole lot more funding around, some people call it regenerative practices, some folks call it climate smart agriculture. But I really think that we're going to see a lot of many other things that we've been doing become something that may also be fundable. But they're also having a comment period right now on it. I got an email through that basically the NRCS was looking for some comments on how they might use the $19 billion that the Inflation Reduction Act sent.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, money is such a topic with us, but I mean, it's assumed that we're gonna get a whole lot more money than normal.
19 billion, right? So
yeah, but I would wait till you see it. I mean, just from historically, I would wait till they show up. But the plan and the estimate is that we're gonna get a lot more money than normal.
I'm definitely going to try to tune in on December 13th.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So, I was giving a couple examples. So, those of you that are unfamiliar with our Food Well Alliance resources, so we provide some resources that can be combined. Sometimes you have to get a little creative, but they can be combined with some of these USDA resources to kind of get the most bang for your buck. So with those equip, these are just two examples that we've seen a couple of our farmers use. So with the equip program, you do get that. So it is that cost share program. So you're getting the money on the back end unless you're getting those upfront costs with the cost advance payment. So one thing that some farmers have done is they've utilized some of our farm grants, which I'll touch on. So our farm grant application just opened today. So we provide an annual grant to farmers. We have two different grant packages. The farm support grant is a $7,000 grant that can go towards farm infrastructure projects, tools, equipment, paying staff, things like that. And then we have our farm forward grant, that's a $25,000 grant. So that number's gone up this year. And that is going to be given to two farms, I believe, in this grant cycle. And so that'll be for a larger farm improvement project. But something you can use. So if you were to get one of those grants, that could be some way you could use that to pay for some kind of the upfront costs to put in a high tunnel or things like that. We also have labor support stipends. So we do an annual $3,000 labor support stipend that goes directly to farms, and you can kind of use it at your own discretion. So if you want to use that, if you maybe have some funding from Equip and you're putting up a high tunnel or you're doing some other project and you want to pay someone to actually do the installation, that's a good way to use. The stipend is a good way to fund someone to do that. We also have partnerships through Eco Paradigm. So they've gone, right now it's high tunnel season. So they've done a lot of high tunnels in the past few months where we subsidize or we pay for the labor on their end so they can help actually install the high tunnel on your farm as well. Yeah, and then I covered the farm grant. So like I said, that application opened today and that information is all on our website. Our grants manager, Bobby, will be doing a Q&A webinar on January 9th at 11 a.m. If anyone has any questions, feel free to join in on that. And then the applications will be due on the 27th. So you'll have I know most farmers don't want to spend their holiday time working on an application, but hopefully that'll give you some time into the new year to work on finishing all that paperwork. All right, so now we're going to open it up. If you guys have any questions for any of our USDA speakers, I also ask that you complete our post survey just for some of our reporting. That would be incredible. You can scan this QR code, and for those on Zoom, I'm going to have Chris. Would you mind sending the link in the chat? So Chris is going to send a link in the chat as well. It's just a Google poll. It's pretty quick. So if you guys don't mind answering those questions, that would be great. And if you guys mind, you don't have to do like a formal panel or anything, but feel free. I guess we can do just, I don't know, hands raised, or if you guys call out questions, whatever. We don't have a huge group. And then if anyone on Zoom has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can use the hand raise feature if you want to ask out loud, and then I can just unmute you and give you an opportunity to do that as well. I don't know, need to like call in like class.
So I'm trying to figure out what would be the best way of purchasing for me and my fiance, like our first home, but also farmland to be able to like have the garden on this way, that farm area.
RD,
Say it again.
RD, rural development,
Okay.
but location is gonna be part of it though. It's rural development is like they got certain counties, but they got real good interest rates as pertains to obtaining a home.
I want to say, what county are you looking at?
Right now it's in Henry County.
Henry?
Yes.
That might not be,
But and I know but and Lamar, some of them are.
Okay.
I think that rural development works. It has to be in a rural, designated rural area for you to be able to purchase that home. And there is an income limit. So it's a household income, so they're considered both of your incomes. And I know they've reduced that income limit recently, so it is not that high. So that's something to consider. With my loan program, if you want to purchase farmland, we can do that. We don't make a habit of purchasing dwellings, because we have rural development that's focused on that. However, if there's a dwelling on central to your operation, we can look into it, but it just depends on whether or not the production of your farm will be able to make the whole thing. So,
But you can Google rural development, Georgia, and they have a contact list page. I was about to say it's kind of like the west side of Atlanta, north. Their office is in Cartersville, but I don't know about. Do they have one?
They got one in Marty office.
So you can Google Lamar County FSA office, and if you call FSA, they can transfer you or get you the number.
But it's like, if you looking for in your area, hearing aid, but can be dry, right? They're all fine.
And I didn't mention it, but if you're not in any of my counties that FSA farm programs, just call me and I can direct you to the correct FSA office. You can also look at farmers.gov. They really made it user friendly. So, you know, just say you're experiencing this or this problem, you're just gonna click whatever you're experiencing, and then they're gonna throw up, well, this program might be eligible for you, or this one or this one. So definitely look at farmers.gov too. And it can tell you what offices that county lives in.
I have a question for Chantel. So when you were talking about the eligibility requirements having some farming experience, specifically about the down payment assistance program, you know, I would think that somebody who needs assistance with a down payment has not had a farm before, or maybe a portion of those people are like, I want to purchase this land to start. So in that situation, how does the farming experience component of that work?
So we, great question. Everyone, you can compare, normally look for your taxes, look at file, see if the tax file is scheduled out, and that would be what you have actually on, right? So some people don't have that, because they have never had access to farming with like niche type farming, can't grow trees on someone else's property, long-term crops, things of that sort. And you can gain experience with participating in agriculture program or having education that would make that to the requirement. Or better, you know, we do actually require 1 year actual managerial experience on farm. And that would be like you could lease a farm, or you could work with another farmer. And if you have documents to prove that you manage that farm, based on a handwritten letter, anything like that, we can take that in lieu of this. Okay.
Sorry. Okay. I have a question. When you said about the grassland conservation, what is like, I don't see that a minimum requirement of acre.
For that program, we are gonna like national ranking. So one of the things we would do what's called zero scenario, and then we'll get your application submitted, and then we'll go up to the national ranking. And every year they change that ranking score, but if you dinner farmer, store credit reserve, veterans within 10 years, you would get extra, I was saying, for that. So that was for, so it does help you. Conservation is a real big program. I didn't go in detail, but just for another example, we have, what if you had going through your farm? And you had livestock, doesn't matter what kind of livestock. If you're eligible, I go up there and look, and we have erosion concerns, and I don't know. We can help culture without that creek, because one of your main concerns is you know livestock and your waters. Two, we can help culture the fence, the water lines, the water tank. So those kind of things. You know, if you want to go farmers, just look around, see in our program. Especially conservation, we have so much, but there's no acre requirements for that program. It's
kind of piggyback on that, we don't have a requirement for your farm to be in an urban area. Like it could be in any of our county, any other county that I service, it doesn't have to be deemed agricultural.
I had a question. So I know there were some incentives for the beginning farmers and for the farmers. Do you guys have like a switch advantage category as well, or?
We do, and we usually follow what FSA has published, so whatever their guidelines are, that's what we know. Our socially disadvantaged farmers.
So that would include with the farmers.
Which I will say, I forgot, when I was talking about the NAP program, which is our insurance that's not gonna be traditionally covered by RMA. If you can fill out, it's called an 860, and that is our beginner, veteran, especially disadvantage, limited resource. Your application fee would be covered. You wouldn't have to pay for that if you are eligible to check off on that form.
For insurance purposes, is it possible to insure an agritourism?
No, we only cover production. Don't do any type of structural coverage, either, so to speak, it's just production.
How do you get operation?
But we can definitely, we can ensure that. Long as there's some records that you can maintain or provide to show proof what your production is.
I am curious, so we had called our insurance agent and he'd asked about crop insurance and I assumed that he was talking about whole farm revenue.
Okay.
When we were talking to him, but he was saying there are two different ways that you can insure. Things you can either insure your production or you can insure your income.
Your price. Mhm.
Got it.
So that means if you were to do your policy based on the price you traditionally get, but for some reason you didn't get that price for the restaurant or whoever you're you receive your contract for, then you could potentially have a loss in the account.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or we feel good? Cool. Well, we can get around on last for. You guys are not, especially in the rain. That was very informative and we recorded that whole thing, so we'll have it uploaded on our YouTube and I'll send you guys all a link, the thank you email, which will include the Google Doc with all of the links for the supplemental information as well. But if you guys have any questions, I have my business cards up on that table, as well as Chris, who's the director of our resource center. So any questions at all about farm grants, I can redirect you to Bobby Farmer, our grants manager. But yeah, I would definitely encourage joining in on that webinar on January. Yeah, cool.
I want to stress the importance of like building a relationship with your local conservationist and your local FSA office and your local farm loan office and RMA, crop insurance agent. Like just the familiarity is going to, keep you in the loop on programs. They like the visit to your farm is going to make your conservationist aware what if a new program, like if you speak with Sam and something new comes out, but she's been to your farm and she knows, to reach out to you, and just having that relationship and that rapport aids in a lot of, getting set up and getting everything situated.
If y'all are growing a lot, like Sabina said, it's just your production. Because that is very important, especially like our NAP program or just some Congress throws out some program like we had a COVID rule. We never know what they're going to throw us, but keep your production and report. Even if you're not currently participating, like if you're only doing the organic once a year, please report your acres. That is so important. You tell me, hey, I grew half an acre of this or 1 acre of this. I mean, we even go down to like hundreds of an acre. You don't have to have a lot. It is very important to do that. So anytime you plant anything, you call and say, hey, I planted on this date, this is how much I did. You tell me the square footage, I can do the conversion. So that's very important. I try to stress it. Keep that relationship.
Think of that.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, just to piggyback on that, all of our agencies work together. So whatever you report, to your FSA office, we can pull it or we can retrieve it. And so it's important to do your 1026 for your highly erodible and wetlands, because to be able to actually participate in our program or to receive any premium discounts, you have to have that form completed to make sure that you're planting in the right property. You have to have a farm number to actually have crop insurance so that we can know how to pull. So all of us kind of work together, and our agencies work together with the data that's needed. Usually your first stop is FSA, and then we also work with NRCS as well. So it's just important to have good record keeping that helps to establish your prices, it helps to establish your production, so that we can know what the guarantee to set in case that, you know, you do have a loss, or you know how to set your insurance limit for you. I just gonna turn that in there.
The basic eligibility requirements are requirements for every agency.
Everything you just.
So in my record keeping too, every farm is different. Some people don't, like you mentioned, have acres. They literally count by rows. If that's your process, tell me, I do 8-inch rows or, 12-foot rows, whatever. It doesn't have to be what everyone else does because it's your farm, but you need to keep record of it. So based on that row, what is your yield? How many times are you harvesting? And how many times did you do that in 1 year? That way we can come up with a projection, because that is what we would base your farm loan income on. And then I like to stress, like you mentioned, develop a relationship. Maybe you're not eligible today. You could be eligible 1 year from now, or maybe you don't know, your specific situation is different. You don't have records of the management experience. You can talk to your farm loan person. We can tell you what we need, and you can develop, document this upcoming year. Next year you might be eligible. So next year is coming up, right? So, I mean, that is something to consider. Or, we very much like to tell you what you can do, because I think our program is great for all of us, and we ultimately want to help our farmers. So we want to get you there. Just give us a call. If you're not there now, we'll try to work with you.
And I got one more last word. I know a lot of people, especially if you're just starting out, don't really consider insurance. But if you're gonna make the investment, you're gonna get a loan, you're gonna go and put all this money into your operation, you have to have some type of safety net in the event that there is a loss, because we just don't know Mother Nature's gonna do what Mother Nature does. And so you wanna be able to protect the amount of money that you put into your operation. So I know it may not be at the top of your list of priorities for your farm, but don't forget or lose sight of being able to insure or protect your investment through some type of insurance.
Our operating loans require insurance. If it's available at reasonable rates and terms, I know that's great. But if it's reasonable, and it's available, we're gonna require it. So if you don't have it, then you might not be able to get that loan.
Our farm storage loan also requires it. If it's not through RMA, if it's through now, with us, then you have to have it.
What was the process? I don't know who spoke about it, as far as like, so I farm on family land. How would that process go? I know somebody said something about signature, like.
So that'd be with us. So some of our programs do not require a lease. Like if you do not own the land, we have a lease form that you can take to the landowners. Some, like I said, some programs don't require it. I always just like to get up front. So like if a program does say, hey, this is, you already have it on file. So when your initial start out with me and getting the farm number, if you say, hey, I don't own it, I will say, okay, if you don't already have a written lease with the landowner, here's a form if you like to take it. And it's simple, and then you can turn it in with the eligibility forms.
And then our requirements for lease land is the life of practice.
The contract.
Same with farm loans. If you want a 7-year note, that's how long your lease has to be.
But with signature authority is mainly with entities. That's like when, if you're signing up to participate in the entity, I would just have to have that article of formation, your documents for that entity. So sometimes we do have one form where you would have to write out your members to show who has the share, and you would say, okay, this person has signature authority. Well, sometimes with since I've been working here, this thing has been a while. Well, when you form that company, you might have thought, well, my wife is in here. Well, if it's not written, she has signature authority. You know, that could be a problem. So I always like to have those formation papers. So at the beginning, we're looking like, oh, she really doesn't have it. So you could just say, hey, here's a power of attorney, FSA form. My wife is signing everything for me. It's just we have to have that signature authority for that entity.
And do, creating the entity, do I have to own the land or can it still be family land?
It can be,
Okay.
yeah, and you don't have to be an entity. You can be an individual
Okay.
to participate with all of us.
All right.
As long as your lease covers whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I got one more. Trying to ear hustle and dice up everything, 'cause I don't think my question is pertaining to what we just covered. But I'll just throw it out there, 'cause y'all are very knowledgeable. And y'all are pointing in the right direction. So our farm has been active for about 4 years, 5 years, but we have a digital aspect that partners with our farm and our agro-tourism, agro-education construct. It's pivotal. Is there anything just off the top of your head that could assist me that you all have? I haven't really heard it because it's more aligned with produce and production. I'm just trying to see how that can wiggle in anywhere if possible. So it's an app. I know y'all said urban farmers news. I'm kind of figuring out.
So that's the technical side though.
Yeah.
So so you are in agritourism, right? And you got ag education. You may want to understand how to better, like what you are producing or what you are doing on your farm. You might want to better address that, or you might have some resource concerns that are issues where it's not financial, but it's technical, right? Where somebody said, hey, maybe try this instead of this, or maybe put this in this situation. There's a lot of helping on the technical side,
Yeah.
but as far as financial assistance or any thing towards that digital side, probably not, just technical.
There wouldn't be I was just gonna ask, there wouldn't be a gap or maybe something in there where it could be considered under the marketing or market readiness for farmers? So like you have to have a marketing plan, right? Would that app or something like that not be considered under a marketing plan, or what does that look like maybe?
So we've actually had situations with that. Someone has a different facet, agritourism component of their farm. However, the production side comes first for farm loans. So if you're producing a commodity, that's what we're focused on. We can help create a website. We can help develop an app with the operating. But the primary repayment has to be coming from that production. For farm loans.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the agricultural marketing, but I don't know if that would maybe fall into some, yeah, so look into them, I'm not. So, yeah.
I have business cards, so, if you have any questions, that I can forward the correct person, or if you have any questions. Myself.
I did include some fact sheets back there and some water bottles to make sure you guys grab some.
Yeah.
And I'll send out those virtual.
Okay.
Those as well, if you want for your record.
So,
Okay, yeah, I'll include those it's a Google Doc, so I'll add some stuff.
I have one more. For the farm loan, so say it's land in Erie County, right? But then to build I don't know if it's possible to get a farm loan for the land and then I guess the FHA loan to buy a home,
So that gets a little tricky because when it comes down to security, if we're buying the land, we have land as security. And if you want to get an FHA loan, they'll require the land. So we're not going to relinquish our lien if we purchase property. So, you can cut out an acreage, we have to pay us the market price for that. cut out acreage. That would involve a survey on the property. So we do have that happen a lot. But it depends obviously on the size. If you know that's your intent to begin with, we recommend getting it surveyed prior to purchasing it. So that way you have that section cut off. But yeah, but if you're gonna do an FHA, you're purchasing property to get an FHA loan, that's not gonna work. You know, they're gonna require that property security.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yes.
The microloan used for farm structures.
Yes, so there's a micro OL and then the operating loan and there's a micro FL. Which is the farm ownership, but that was still the $50,000 threshold. However, when it comes to security, that would probably be affixed to the real estate, so that would be something to consider. You have to take that real estate.
What's, you know, just say like, needed a cooler and like. Usually different, but not often, we just take the structure.
Could the farm storage program be used to repair an existing
Cooler. No, we can. I'm not sure. Honestly, I have not seen that done.
Yeah, I haven't seen it on our side. As much as.
But if we can purchase.
Yeah.
We can get back to you on
Yeah.
that.
I just. Yeah.
I thought it was a full refrigerated truck that was running on a lot and. So now I just have.
If you don't mind sending me an email, and we'll precisely with that.
Yeah.
Which one are you?
I mean,
Okay, yeah, you're good.
I'm gonna go off the recording and go ahead and wrap up the Zoom. I believe Chris, yeah, so Chris sent the link to that Google document and everyone should be able to access that. And if anyone on Zoom has any questions or comments or anything, feel free to shoot me an email. Thank you guys for joining.